Want help to grow your business? Download BRiN, the world's first business advisor in your pocket. To find out more, visit BRiN.ai or search the App Store today.
Hi, welcome to Courageous Leadership, 12-episode series, and we're into episode 4. My name is Mandy Holloway and I'm the co-founder of Courageous Leaders. I'm really looking forward to taking you through this really critical topic, management versus leadership, when to focus on what. And before you can decide what you need to focus on, you actually need to understand what's the difference. And it's not about getting pedantic about it, it's about just getting clarity on what is management or managing and what is leading, why are they both important, and am I getting the balance right? And the balance that I'm bringing, is that going to mean that I'm going to release the full potential of my business? So once again, I'm going to invite you to ask and share. We've got various social media ways of connecting with us. I'd love you to ask questions. I'd love you to share stories and insights, and I promise to make sure that I engage in a conversation with you. So when we're looking at this difference between managing and leading, let's put it in perspective. Let's have a look at the fact that you started your business as an entrepreneur, and most of you would have done a lot of doing. And you would have really enjoyed doing the doing, because you were creating your niche. You were creating your way of going to the market. Now, as I said, if any of you watched the Masters of Business episodes, was that there's a big difference between being an entrepreneur and being a leader. And I was having this conversation with some small business owners just the other day. And he was saying, he's been doing a lot and finding his niche and finding his individuality as a person who's delivering to the marketplace. And as we were talking, he said, but I'm beginning to realise that if I want my business to grow, it's not about me being out doing all the doing. It's not about me being out with my customers, being out with my clients, out with my suppliers, making things happen. It's about me managing other people to do that. And the reason I need to do that is I need to spend much more time and energy in leading. Because if you as a small business owner want your business to grow, that's what's going to enable it to grow, not that. That you'll stay as a one-man band. And if you're happy to do that, that's fine, and if that's what you want. But if you want your business to grow and you want to be more than just an entrepreneur, then you need to look at what do I need to do to manage and lead. And what I'm going to talk to you about, and I know that we've spoken about it for those that have watched before, in episode 2, we talked about leverage cycle conversations. So the only way that you are going to be able to shift into that managing space is to leverage the efforts of all the people in your business. And this doesn't just have to be full-time employees. I know many of you use and use people, VAs, people you're outsourcing, you're offshoring. You might have contractors, you might have part-time people. They might not be classified as employees. You might even be using consultants. So this is about leveraging the efforts of all the resources that you have so that you are managing and being able to step into leading. So when we're looking at this leverage, I talk about leverage cycle conversations. And for those of you that joined me in episode 2, you would remember that we said it all started with your first conversation, which was having the belief, the mindset, attitude to delegate. And that this wasn't just hoping that somebody was going to be able to do the work. We actually went through a step-by-step process and a way of framing your conversation that you could delegate so you were getting the work back at the right time to the right level of quality, so that you could actually deliver it at the right time back to your client or customer. So we want to delegate. We then have to support people to be at their best. And in the next episode, we're going to have a look at that in a lot more detail. We want people to know that you care about them, they're significant, they're important, they're engaged, so they actually want to deliver their best, and you're enabling them to deliver their best. And this is what managing is all about. Then importantly, this is a conversation that in many countries, we don't do very well at all. We're worried about the implications of it. We need to give people feedback on their performance, and that's constructive feedback and positive feedback, as well as developmental feedback. And then once we've done that, what we're going to do, and once they've accepted that they want to change the way they're performing, you're going to coach them. And you're going to coach them for high performance so they can be the best they could possibly be, so that the next time you delegate to them, they're going to do it even better. And the velocity at which you have these conversations, and the veracity, being the honesty, the transparency, means you're enabling yourself to step into this managing space with far more confidence, conviction and courage to actually know that you're going to get back what you want. And if you haven't watched it, episode 2, we talked about delegating in a lot more detail. So those 4 conversations actually mean that you are able to step into that managing space and stop doing. And you would remember we talked about, the delegation tightrope. Do I delegate? Don't I delegate? That we really want you, if you're wanting your business to grow, and that you're not just the key person and almost that key man risk, then you need to be using these leverage cycle conversations. And in the following episode, so this will be the next episode, then we go this one and then this one. So if you follow the episodes following this, we're going to go through each of those conversations in a lot more detail. And what you're going to notice is that we're talking about that we've got a focus on the individual, a focus on the task, and a focus on the team. And whenever we're looking at how do we have these conversations to actually leverage the efforts of people, we need to bring a focus on each. And John Adair's work is really great from this perspective. And if anyone needs to know more, ask questions, as I've encouraged you to do. But if I have a look at some of the information that he provides. So as an example, with a task, you're going to establish a really clear goal. And you'll remember we talked about the GRIP conversation in episode 3, where we started with G for goal. What is the outcome for the task? What do we want to achieve? And then from an individual perspective, it's about understanding that individual and helping them understand their role, their responsibility, and giving them accountability. And then from the team perspective, we'll start to look, because it might be that they've got to leverage efforts of somebody else in the team and work together to achieve the outcome, and they might need to work with somebody else in the team. So we need to have some standards of behaviour so that we're actually supporting each other and encouraging each other to be at our best. So I encourage you to think, and what I often, when I run leadership programs, I say to people, sit down and think about, on your average day, where am I investing most of my time and energy? Is it in the task? Is it in the team? Is it in the individual? And I'm going to say to you that I bet you there's one of those areas that's missing your attention. So in my experience, a lot of the time, we spend a lot of time on the task, some time on team, and very little time on the individual. So encouraging you to think about that. And as we go through this episode, you'll get some tips and tricks to be thinking about, well, when do I need to focus on each? And when we're looking at this, it's not just about managing a task, it's also about leading the task. So we need to start understanding the difference between managing and leading, but from a perspective of task, team, and individual. So really encourage you to be thinking about that, because it's important. Another really critical way of looking, a critical way, I should say, of looking at the difference between managing and leading. John Kotter is world-renowned from Harvard University on his research, and his paper that he wrote, What Leaders Really Do, and he wrote it years ago. It still pops up in the 10 most read articles globally from Harvard. And it's an article I get people in our programs to read because it's really simple to understand. And I think he has a really neat way, and I'm going to share with you his definition of what the definition is and the difference between managing and leading. And what he says simply is, without good management, complex enterprises become chaotic in ways that threaten their very existence. Managing brings a degree of order and consistency to key dimensions like quality and profitability of products and services. So if you start thinking about the fact that managing means that I'm focused on accountability, profitability, quality, it starts to make sense why these conversations are so important. It also starts to make sense, as he says, when you're talking about managing, it's about implementing. So it's about planning, it's about achieving, and it's about controlling. And it's very much that sort of day-to-day operation. And then he talks about leading. And he says, the business world has become more competitive and more volatile, so major changes are more and more necessary for business to survive. More change demands more leadership. And I know from my experience, it's been quite fascinating to watch over the last 20 years how programs that when I first started doing them would have been called management programs, they're now called leadership programs. Because I think there's a groundswell out there that, management's not sexy anymore. We don't want to do that. We're all leaders. And that's part of the problem, is that because we haven't differentiated the need for leading and managing, we're not necessarily doing both really well. And we're not clear on who is doing the managing and who is doing the leading. And leading is about creating vision, having people wanting to follow you. It's what we talked about in the episode 2 and episode 3, where we talked about, the vision, the brand and the culture, and creating a vision that actually inspires people to want to come with you. And then aligning everybody to that vision. And very importantly, inspiring them to go out and do it. And Stephen Covey, in his book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, has a great little story about the difference between leading and managing. And he said, if we're in a jungle and we're sort of cutting a path through the jungle, he said, the people who are doing the managing are the ones that are making sure the people who are doing the doing have got water, they've had muscle building activities to strengthen their muscles so that they're at their peak when they're doing their job. There are people who are making sure they've got water, making sure that they've got food, sustenance, that their equipment is sharpened. So there's all those enablers that are making sure that these people can do. The leader is the person who climbs up the tree, has a good look and says, oh, we're in the wrong jungle. And it's a really simple story, but it's actually what is the difference between managing and leading. So it's important that we start to think about what is it that we are actually doing on a daily basis. And I was so excited. Last night I was at a meeting, and there were people that have participated in the first 4 modules of our leadership program. They've signed up to continue doing the program. And one of the executives said, one of the things that really struck me was I sat, as Mandy had asked me to do, and on a daily basis I was tracking where I was spending my hours. Was it in doing? Was it in managing? Was it in leading? And she said I was completely overwhelmed that probably 70% of my day I was doing this. And I was doing it because I wanted the quality to be, all those reasons that we talked about in episode 2 around the short-term focus on quality, productivity, and you're always going to make the decision to do it yourself, because you get to that stage where you think, no one can do it like I can. And they can't, because you're the only person that's you, but you could enable them. They might even find a better way of doing it. So I'm going to challenge you, rattle your cage, have a good hard look in that mirror. That we've talked about that cage of habits we all have. And particularly I think as an entrepreneur and a business owner, it can be really hard to let go of the doing. And this one guy I was talking to yesterday, I was in a few different meetings yesterday, and the one chap said,
to continue enjoying this presentation, download BRiN, the world's first business advisor in your pocket. To find out more, visit BRiN.ai or search the App Store today.